Imagine that. Imagine growing up to have that be your job. That is a lot of damage. I might need... Holy shit. Holy fuck. So in today's stream, we've already looked at the new 2A units and if I think they're good or not. And during the course of that, there have been a lot of people complaining about how hard the new Grim Reaper B5 is actually for them to clear. So I figured might as well make one specific video about it. We're going to take a look at the boss fight itself. We're going to talk about the Grim Reaper's abilities and how we can counter it. We're going to look at some free-to-play teams and just in general team building around it. As always, I'm going to put a bunch of timestamps on the screen right now and also in the actual video timeline, so you can just skip around if you feel like it. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the actual video, shall we? So yeah, I guess we're going to start off by looking at the actual boss fight itself. We're going to figure out which sort of abilities he has and how we're going to be able to counter it in just a bit. Now, pretty much what this boss fight has going for himself is a lot of burst damage. You kind of already saw it in the introduction, where the boss uses his second skill, which puts continuous damage on your entire team and gives him an additional turn. And at that point, as long as he doesn't derp, he's going to use his third skill, which is going to stun your entire team comp. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough, he's going to get a bunch of attack bar for every single continuous damage effect that you have on your team. Pretty much that's another additional turn on top of those 2 turns already, and if he gets to kill with his first skill, he actually gets another turn, which technically puts on the full cycle again and again. But not just that, we also have 2 towers, with the one on the left stripping and putting some more continuous damage on your entire team, and the one on the right kind of messing with your attack bars. So when it comes to strategy, as far as I'm concerned, like if you're a player like myself, where you just can outrun this dungeon, that shouldn't be such a big deal. But if you're a beginner, the one playstyle that you really want to get into is going to be that sort of turn cycle, Lauren Verderhal. And I know you're not going to be able to use both of them, but just hear me out in general when it comes to Summoner's War. As long as there is no mechanic that actually actively counters turn cycle, it's almost always going to be the right choice for you. This game is all about autoing stuff, and the more turns your team takes, the less chances are for it to fuck up. But yeah, that's enough theory crafting already. Let's talk about the actual team building right now. As always, every single Dimension Hole dungeon comes with one condition that you need to incorporate in your team comp. With this time around, we're only going to be able to use one monster of every single type, which is going to be HP, defense, attack, and support. But also don't forget that the Grim Reaper himself, all of them actually are attack type units. So we only really have 3 types to choose from, and I would say I want to start off with the one that I personally think is the easiest to just incorporate. Now, we've already kind of talked about support units for this dungeon in particular. I know Fran isn't like fully ideal since the tower on the left does have a strip, but just because she's free to play, like most of you guys have your best violence set on your Fran, and I really think that for situations like this, it's still justified even in 2020. I'd say there is some really insane light and dark units that can kind of outlast the Fran, such as Eleona or maybe Amana, maybe a Molly. It really depends. I personally like using the Light Homunculus, for instance, but overall I'd say she's just the easiest and safest bet for like 9 out of 10 people that watch this video right now. So I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way first. So we have attack type, we have support type done, and now we're pretty much just left with defense and HP types, and it's a lot trickier to get into those. Now if we look at this list so far, I think there are some units that are actually pretty good. I've seen some people recommend things like, let's say, Avera to me, which also just happens to be defense type, and I don't think it's such a bad choice if you have like insane runes on those units. Basalt. I think Basalt is, honestly, out of all of these, fuck, wait, there we go. Out of all of these, I think Basalt is the strongest. For real. Basalt's first skill has a chance to provoke. Verat's first skill doesn't do shit. If you provoke the Grim Reaper, it doesn't do anything for 1 turn. Basalt's second skill has some healing and some defense, which against the right tower doesn't work, but against the 2 other ones it does. And the third skill is pretty good too. The third skill is the only reason that is like why Verat is even on this list. Whereas Basalt is kind of, it's more consistent in that regard. Like what I said earlier, Verat's third has like 4 turn cooldown, and it's you get 1 cooldown reduction when you enter the fight. So you have like 1 in 3 chance of like proccing it. Whereas Basalt, like pretty much every one of his abilities has an impact. And that is something that you really want to take into consideration when building stuff for like PvE team building, right? Like some people have recommended running a Feng Yan. I don't think that he does enough himself, but if you have like your best set on him, like I think it's a pretty solid choice. It doesn't really help too much with the turn cycle playstyle that I've been recommending to people that don't actually have the runes to take all of that damage at once. One unit that I think gets kind of overlooked by a lot of people that just kind of already had Basalt built is our boy the Wind Mammoth, Olivine, is that how you pronounce it? I don't fucking know. But basically, it's kind of the same thing as a Basalt, except you swap the kind of mediocre healing for a 3rd skill. It's an attack bar boost and a harmful effect removal. This is kind of going to be the one type that some people might have trouble with. I think another option would be units like a Triton for that 2nd skill, Silence, more than anything. Don't build tanks, don't build any of that stuff. Just get some units that have a lot of turn cycle in their actual kits and that help you control the boss more than actual tanking it. And the last type is going to be the HP type, and I think there's going to be a lot of units that are already like very well ruined on your account, so there's like really no harm in trying to make them work for this dungeon in particular as well. So I'm mostly looking at units like a Vigor, which probably most of you guys have like insane runes on him. Now I'm personally not really the biggest fan of him for the Grim Reapers in particular, but if you already have like an insane violence set, plus let's say have skill ups on him, I feel like there is no harm in using him for this as well, just kind of like as an off healer. I think another decent alternative would be Josephine, which also has a 2nd skill which provokes the boss, which kind of makes his turns utterly useless, as well as her passive kind of helping you deal with the burst of the boss's 3rd skill. So pretty much all you really need to do is survive it, and at that point you're gonna have that thick shield from Josephine to kind of soak up a little bit more damage. And I know none of these units were like too free to play friendly, so I'm just gonna hit you with the most free to play unit instead then, Lupinus, which first of all we just got skill ups from Hall of Heroes in the form of the Fire Magic Knight, and on top of that of course she is fusible, and I genuinely think since we're not going to be able to use Lauren for this dungeon, Lupinus is going to be your next go-to choice. Like I've already mentioned it before, you really want to have units that are consistent, where every single ability that they use is going to have some sort of contributing factor in the actual boss fight itself. Like her 1st skill has attack speed slow, her 2nd skill is insane, 2-turn silence, just kind of nullifies whatever the boss is gonna do, and it's just so consistent. The 3rd skill has attack bar reduction. I'd say if you struggle with this dungeon, she's gonna be my kind of secret tip to you guys. You know what? We're not gonna talk about runes in theory. I'm actually gonna build this team. I'm not gonna be using like my most insane runes. We're just gonna try and like build something nice and easy that everyone can replicate, alright? So this is kind of the team that I came up with, and I figured might as well just kind of show you guys in an auto fight itself before I talk about the actual runes that I have on these units, just to kind of prove that it's 100% that turn cycle is the way to go when it comes to these dungeons. I'm using my Homunculus right now just for that extra bit of team up damage, and also my Lupinus is not fully skilled, but of course my Basalt and my Train are, as well as my Homunculus actually. The only reason why I kind of use him over Fran is because I like being a hipster. I can show you guys my Fran's runes, but I can tell you, like, if I use my Fran in this, it's kind of gonna be cheating because she's on some pretty insane runes, so I don't really feel too comfortable showcasing them on like a beginner guide, on like a easy to obtain, easy to rune team building guide. It kind of feels wrong for me, but yeah, I think when it comes to the time of these teams, a huge benefit for us is that we have the 10 times, and we can just have these sort of teams run overnight, because I can already tell that this is going to be like a 3-minute team right now. Lupinus doesn't hit for anything. The dot damage from Train only really does have an impact once we have like a couple of turns in the actual fight itself. So yeah, it's not the fastest team, but I feel like, especially when it comes to dimensional hole dungeons, like just getting 100% consistency on your units is going to be the way to go. Like that should be always your #1 priority, even more than like, let's say Kairos or like Arena, where you have like just very quick resources and you can just keep buying more and more of them. With dimensional hole you have limited resources, and it's really important to keep them and like be kind of conservative with them. Like I can tell you guys for sure, I haven't missed a single week of buying extra 30 of those energies for like 360 crystals, so you can kind of get a rough idea of like how much I actually value them as an endgame player and how good it actually can be for you to like use that energy, get some more 2As going, and even more importantly, get some good runes. So yeah, we start off the fight. We got really lucky with the silence, but I'm pretty sure if Lupinus just used her 3rd skill instead, we would have been pretty well, like we would have done just as fine. But yeah, at this point, like the boss with the 2-turn silence, like he just doesn't do anything for so long. And now we get some additional attack bar, we get some additional turn cycle. My Lupinus has another turn, she uses another 2nd skill. Like I said, she's not fully skilled. I can showcase her skill ups in just a bit. I think I have a couple of them in her, but like I think she needs like 12 or so like it's gonna be a long way to go. And the fight is almost over. If there is one issue with this team where again Fran would be better, is like the sustain. As you guys can see, my homunculus kind of struggles to keep everyone up because her 2nd skill doesn't really heal for anything. But like I said, I wouldn't really feel too comfortable, and you guys will probably blame me on clickbaiting or whatever if I were to use my own Fran in this, which I might. As you guys can see, like this is just over. Yeah, these turn cycle teams are just insane, dude. Like these turn cycle teams are insane. You've kind of seen what this team is capable, and it's almost free to play. I would say that if I were to use, instead of the Basalt, the Wind Mammoth, this team would even be better. Like we get a lot of additional attack bar, plus even more cleanses, and if I were to use a Fran instead of the Homunculus, we have a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to cooldowns, but way more sustain, and as far as I'm concerned, that's also not too bad. But I'm just going to quickly showcase all of the runes. Now my train is on a kind of decent rune build. He's on Violent Will, which I kind of just chose the Will set because I actually do want to test him out in PvP later on as well. But I'm pretty sure if you were to just run him on Violent Focus, you can get those stats pretty quickly and pretty easily. Now he is on speed, as you guys can see, like fully ungrinded. Speed, HP, and attack percentage. These are, like this is a hero rune, this is basically another hero rune. All of these ones are like blue runes. You can get that from like a month worth of farming Kairos. My Basalt is like on the worst runes. Like as you guys can see, 100 speed, violent. It's basically again like 5-star runes, blue runes. Just kind of the stuff that I had left over in my storage. 21 speed. I'm trying to get some speed on these, but it's more just to kind of make up for runes like this. Which are just low rolls across the board and like a double roll into defense, but it's again just a blue rune at the end of the day. My Lupinus isn't even on violent. I just ran a random swift set on her, and she's not even on like maxed runes, as you guys can see. Like plus 12, there you go, another plus 12. Like it's really not such a big deal. You can get these teams up and running on 100% consistency without any issues, and the rune requirements on these units are really low, as you guys can see. Now again, my homunculus, pretty low stats. They're all on will because I do sometimes use them in PvP. You really do not need that for these sort of dungeons, so just kind of add an extra 20% accuracy and extra 20% resistance. Like if I were to run like a different offset, it's just way better in that regard. But it's the same thing with my homunculus. I'm running it on speed, defense, and HP. Pretty much just no grinds across the board. It's like mediocre hero runes, mediocre blue runes. Not really such a big deal. So yeah, I hope this kind of helped some of you guys out that seem to struggle with the B5 of the Grim Reaper dungeons. I think overall the family is really strong, and a lot of people probably underestimate how good they're gonna be, not just in PvE but also in player versus player. I can already see these units being somewhat good. If I helped you out, a like would be greatly appreciated. Like I can promise you guys for sure that I'm gonna be doing some guides on the Lulu dungeon as well, which I've seen that it's not as hard as this one, so I kind of really wanted to do this first. And yeah, I feel like that's pretty much going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until then, see you guys in my next video. Bye!